Greg, this is Michael. Maybe as people are coming back on, can I just, we've had a chance to introduce some new staff in our first segment. We've got a few NEBI staff here. Maybe I can just quickly mention them.
That sounds like a good idea.
Always a little harder to distinguish people here in the Zoom listing, but I want to say thanks to all the NEBI staff who are here. You all know Marla and Darren, who sort of keep the wheels on. We're going to hear shortly from Camille Gentles-Pert and Tatiana as well. John Harney, who's our executive editor of the New England Journal of Higher Education. We've got our policy team here today, Candace Williams and Charlotte Pizer, and Stephanie Murphy and Sheridan Miller as well. I had a chance to introduce, of course, Jared Abdurkin, our new Sarah director, and our new director of finance, Michelle Pelletier. We also have another new staff member who's here with us, Sarah Jean-Francois. Sarah's been with us. She actually began as an intern in our tuition rate program and is now one of our associate directors there as well. In addition to our two faculty diversity fellows, our open education resource fellow, Lindsay Gum. Let's see, Stafford Pete also from our policy team, and lastly, Wendy Lindsay from our who oversees the tuition rate program. Hopefully I caught everyone in that intro. We appreciate them joining us here and appreciate their support in helping queue up a good portion, not only of the Legislative Advisory Committee meeting that was mentioned, but the work that we'll talk about now and some of the discussion we'll have.
Great, thank you, Michael. So having been reconvened, then we'll just continue on with, we're now on item number 5 of the agenda. A conversation and updates about the diversity work that's going on in New England and specifically at NEBI. It's a two-part part of our agenda. We'll first hear some presentations from staff who I will introduce in a moment related to NEBI's work. And then we will move to a conversation which will be led by several folks who will give state perspectives and updates that are happening in their region of New England. And then we can conclude with hopefully some time for board members to comment on the work or to offer their own perspectives and updates about work that's happening in their state. We begin with updates from staff on our work, and with us today to update us on the North Star Collective pilot program are our NEBI fellows, Dr. Tatiana Cruz and Dr. Camille Gentles-Pert. Soon after they conclude, we'll also hear from Michael Thomas, of course, and Stephanie Murphy from our staff. But for now, I'll turn it over to Drs. Cruz and Gentles-Pert.
Great. Thank you, Greg, for introducing us. We'll just start. We're going to make this brief. This is really just an overview of what we've done since our last time. And we'll start by giving a brief introduction of ourselves for those of you that we didn't meet in March. So I am Dr. Camille Gentles-Pert, and I am a professor of communication and media studies at Roger Williams University. And I'm joined by my colleague, Tatiana.
Hi, everybody. Happy Friday. I'm Tatiana Cruz. I'm an assistant professor and director of Africana Studies at Simmons University.
Great. So a bit of a recap. When we met in March, we introduced a reparative justice approach to faculty equity, which really encompassed wanting to focus on restoring, nourishing, and uplifting BIPOC faculty in the region, and also supporting leaders as they transform their institutions around racial equity. And so two of our main goals at the time were to, first of all, create a consortium of post-secondary institutions committed to reparative justice, and secondly, to develop the North Star Collective, which are initiatives that support Black, Indigenous, and people of color faculty in the region. Since then, we hosted 4 roundtable discussions on BIPOC faculty equity to discuss our reparative justice framework. A few of you participated in those, thank you. And we use that as an opportunity to also get feedback on the North Star Collective initiative. The roundtables included leaders from a range of institutions across the region, including community colleges, liberal arts colleges, and Research One institutions. And based on those conversations, we are now pleased to introduce the North Star Collective. The North Star Collective is a group of colleges and universities in the New England region that are committed to both transforming their institutions and uplifting and nourishing BIPOC faculty on their campuses. The vision of the collective is two-pronged or twofold. On one hand, we are looking to support institution leaders in their transformative work, in the work that they're already doing. And the second piece of it is to produce programming and initiatives that will help to uplift and restore and provide spaces of healing for BIPOC faculty. So I will summarize the institutional support pieces of the collective, and then I will toss it to Tatiana, who will be sharing the faculty fellowship piece of it. So the institutional support piece came out of the reality that institutions are unjust, and that institutions need to transform how they operate so as to not to harm BIPOC faculty. We can't invite BIPOC faculty to be in institutions where they could potentially not thrive and face harm. And so we recognize that many institutions in the region have already begun this work. And we also know that others want to engage in this work, even if they haven't started it yet. And so North Star Collective supports these kinds of transformative works, or the desire to do transformative works, in a few ways. First of all, as members of the collective, institutions get to benefit from participating in a community of institutions where they can pool their resources, share best practices and expertise, and really just provide support and this kind of accountability for each other as they pursue racial justice on their campus. Additionally, NEBI, as in the North Star Collective, will be organizing 2 facilitated roundtable discussions for chief diversity officers and their affiliates. And this will be an informal gathering twice a year throughout the academic year, one in the fall, one in the spring, where leaders on campus who are already doing this work can come and find community. They can come and commiserate and share and encourage and just keep each other supported as they're doing this work. We're also going to be offering 2 webinars on topics related to reparative justice. Again, this will be spread out throughout the academic year, so one in the fall and one in the spring. The one that we're planning for this fall will be around thinking about reparative justice, what reparative justice actually looks like, what it could mean for institutions to use this framework for faculty equity. We're also going to be curating a resource toolkit for the members of the collective. And this, one of the things that we realized is that during the roundtables that we had in the spring, that there were many people who are already working on reparative justice things, and they had great ideas. And people at who participated in a roundtable kept asking each other, so how did you do this? And how did you reform tenure? And what was the transformation around hiring? So what we would like to do is gather that in one place and make it accessible to our collective members. And then finally, we are also going to be offering 2 guaranteed faculty fellow seats in the pilot year of the North Star Collective. Now, this doesn't mean that each institution will only have 2 faculty members. It just means that those 2 seats will be guaranteed for our founding members. And then Tatiana now will talk about this faculty fellowship piece.
Hi, everyone. Yes, we are very excited to launch that we've been working on this initiative for a long time, and it's happening. So we'd love to talk to you about the faculty fellowship now. The faculty fellowship is designed for BIPOC faculty, early career faculty in their first 5 years of teaching at an institution. It is open for faculty right now in the humanities and social sciences. That's where we'd like to start, and we hope to grow to other fields. And we are trying to be as inclusive as possible. Faculty can be full-time faculty. They could also be adjunct faculty, tenure track faculty, community college faculty. We're really trying to make this an opportunity available to all BIPOC faculty that fit the criteria. Faculty will apply this fall, and we will have a process of selection. They will be notified, and these are some of the benefits they would get. They would each get a $1,000 stipend to support their research. They would participate in what we expect to be a virtual writing retreat in January. Though, you know, if the situation improves with COVID, perhaps we could do that in person. We would have biweekly writing groups where faculty would speak about their work, and this is whatever scholarship they are working on currently, and gain support, and then dedicate time to that research and writing bi-weekly. We will also be hosting 3 virtual workshops on 3 topics: developing a writing routine in publishing, is there such thing as a work-life balance, right? Balancing the academy and everything else. And then planning for tenure and promotion. And we expect to invite senior colleagues, faculty members, and administrators to speak about their experiences, to give advice to junior faculty. And so we can build this really community of care and support and holistic growth. They will also obviously benefit from peer mentorship and networking, opportunities to elevate their profile, their academic profile on their campuses and throughout NEBI, even broader. And then we hope to host a virtual, you know, if not in person, symposium or colloquium, a works in progress, where fellows will share their work at the end of the spring semester. In terms of the commitments, in order to participate in the North Star Collective, institutional members will commit to $5,000 membership fee. They will also commit to promote our reparative justice initiatives and the North Star Collective events and faculty fellowship on their campuses. We hope to recruit a really great pool of faculty applying each year. And then as well to share periodic updates on any work that they're doing towards transformative, restorative, nourishing, and uplifting projects undertaken on their campuses. For this pilot year, we're seeking 10 founding member institutions. That's been our goal for this year. We are happy to report some great news. We have 5 institutions who have already committed to be founding members, including Clark University, Salem State University in Framingham State from Massachusetts, Eastern Connecticut State University from Connecticut, and the University of Southern Maine from Maine. We are in dialogue with many other institutions, and we hope that within the next week or 2, we will have reached our 10 university goal. We're also happy to report that we received a $20,000 commitment for a grant from Bob Hildreth, and we are excited that that will support our work going forward, and hopefully that'll be able to really build a robust pilot program this year. In case you're interested in our timeline, we expect this fall to be largely settling our institutions, collecting membership fees, and doing the call for applications, and hope to receive the applications by the end of October. We will begin hosting our North Star Collective programming for the institutional members, so including a webinar for anyone that institutions would like to send on reparative justice that Camille spoke about, as well as our roundtables for chief diversity officers and anyone doing equity work on campus. We hope to announce the inaugural cohort of faculty fellows and host a virtual orientation before the start of the new year. We will begin our programming for the faculty fellowship in January, and it will go through May. We will have bi-weekly writing groups, a monthly virtual workshop, and then we will bookend that with a retreat in the beginning of the semester and a closing symposium or colloquium at the end of the semester. And that's it for Camille and I. We welcome any questions. I linked here our email. We have a reparativejustice@nebi.org email, as well as our website. And I will drop our program brochure in the chat in case anybody would like to look at that in more depth.
Great, thank you very much for that update. Do members have questions for our presenters? Don't be bashful. David.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks so much for this great work. It's just so exciting to see how far it's come since the spring meeting. So, fabulous and so needed. A couple questions. I wondered if you could say where the roundtables have been so far and how they went with faculty, what you were hearing. And then also, how are you reaching out to the states so that maybe I could follow up for New Hampshire?
Yeah. So we haven't, our roundtables were exclusively with leaders of institutions and leaders who are doing this work on campuses. We did plan to do roundtables with faculty, and then we decided to, first of all, see what we would have, and then we would develop something and develop a model and then take it to faculty and see how they would respond to it. So that's still our plan. We can say though that during our roundtables, we did have 1 or 2 faculty who joined in, who are there as representatives for their institutions, and the feedback anecdotally from those faculty is, yes, let's do this. We really want to do this. We've also been hearing back from faculty indirectly through the subsequent meetings that we've been having with institution leaders, where they have said that we have floated this out to our faculty and our faculty are excited about it. So the general response is that they're very excited about it. The most common quote complaint is, can we have more fellows? Can people who are not pre-tenure also participate? Associate professors would really like to do this. So we are excited that we are excited about it, and we're excited that other people are excited, and we are just ready to start. And yeah, go ahead, Tatiana.
No, just to add to your question, Senator Waters, thank you. In terms of the initial group of institutions, we started with folks who had engaged our roundtables. When we had created lists for roundtables, we were looking for anybody we know, right? Anyone connected to NEBI. That was the first round, as well as institutions where we all have, we know somebody, relationships. And then we wanted to make sure it's representative of all the states, all the different kinds of institutions. So we invited lots and lots of institutions. Those who showed up were the ones that we felt were most engaged, and we followed up with them to seek their interest in being North Star Collective founding members. We've expanded that list as well, given the short timeline and COVID. We started adding institutions, but what we could do is send you a list of all the New Hampshire institutions that we've engaged with. If you're interested in following up, we would greatly appreciate that. A lot of folks are very interested and haven't sealed the deal with us. So, I think, any friendly reminders and help would be greatly appreciated. Also, if there are institutions that any of you legislators know of that you believe would be interested in this work, we are absolutely open to suggestions. We are welcoming to all groups, and we are working creatively to find solutions to bring more schools on. One example we can say, because Duncan Harris is here, is we had talked about perhaps counting the Connecticut community colleges as one institution. So that way we could find a funding model that worked, and we could promote it amongst a larger group of institutions. So we are willing to work with everyone in the pilot year, and we welcome your support.
Thank you.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Good to see you, Greg.
Good to see you, Dan.
So it's Dan Malloy from the University of Maine system. If you would send me some information about the folks you've spoken to at our universities, I'd love to try to be helpful.
Great, thank you. Yes, we will send that over. Yes.
Okay, great.
And Tatiana and Camille, this is Michael. First of all, we can't say enough thanks to Tatiana and Camille, who really blazed this work forward, and it's been a great experience to work with them. I'm sort of Mr. Caution, Mr. Process, and they're like SpaceX, right? So the good news is that this is off the ground and really moving, and I really want to give them 2 thumbs up and the public thanks that are due. I would just also add, we from the outset we've hoped to find a way to include 2-year institution faculty in this, and I think that's emerging now, but hopefully that will be a further conversation going forward, because I think there's a real recognition of that being a need and opportunity. And then I would just quickly note too that as soon as we get this sort of launched, I think we'll also be starting early in 22 about how we start to recruit the next cycle too. So if, for institutions that aren't part of this first go around, it won't be too many months off before I think we're going to need to engage people. Given what we know about sort of the sales cycle, if you will, we'll, what I would assume, be working early in 22 to get the next cohort queued up. So,
Michael, if I could jump in just with a full-throated endorsement of Camille and Tatiana. We spent maybe about I've gone to a few sessions, but the last one we talked for a half hour, and then it was just me introducing them to some individuals responsible for some of the DEI work in our system. And then we have a Center for Teaching. And so, I think we were off a little bit because typically faculty would identify their PD for the year or their additional responsibilities. But I do think we'll be able to find somebody or a few folks, depending on the model. And so just a full-throated endorsement of the project. I think without a doubt, all of the states in New England have, equity and DEI work. We've all are aware of the disappointing statistics with regard to BIPOC faculty at all of our institutions in New England. And I think that, and I appreciate NEBI, taking up the banner in this work, and Camille and Tatiana in particular. And so just a full-throated endorsement. And so I certainly want to make sure that we can all provide some support to this initiative.
Thank you, Duncan.
Thank you.
And this is Karen Pardue. I'd like to just quickly jump in. Thank you so much, Tatiana and Camille. This was a really excellent presentation. I've been to your website, and I'm wondering, can the PowerPoint be a resource at the website? Because I think it explains incredibly well the scope and the steps of this really terrific initiative.
Yeah, certainly we can work on putting that out, Karen. Thank you. We will do that. And one of the things that Tatiana and I enjoy being in this space. Numbers may not be our thing, but we do enjoy being in this space because for the pilot year, we're really seeing institutions as partnering with us, and we're really committed to creating this partnership, because as we know, we can't work with faculty if we're not working with institutions, because institutions don't exist without faculty. Faculty don't exist without institutions, and it's difficult for faculty to thrive if institutions aren't behind this. And so we are really looking to partner with institutions as well as senators and legislators, because we really want this to be something that's sustained, something that is impactful, and we need that kind of partnership. When we come into spaces like this, we get the feedback and we get the suggestions, and we can, revise and incorporate. So thank you, everybody.
Well, thank you. We appreciate all your work, and I'll also add, if you'd like to follow up with me about Connecticut institutions, I'd be happy to see. It sounds like you're well on your way with Eastern being committed and working with Dr. Harris and others about the community colleges. But if there are other organizations I can reach out to, other institutions I can reach out to, please contact me. Michael, I think you have the second part of this update.
Yes, thank you, Greg. And I'm going to be as brief as I can possibly be here. Another thing for you to be aware of, NEBI, as mentioned in past conversations, in 1994 helped to found the Compact of Faculty Diversity. With two of our other regional compact peers, we're in the process of really trying to re-elevate that work. One of the things that sprung from it was an annual institute to build support for networks and promote teaching for BIPOC PhD candidates. So effectively a focus here on the pipeline for BIPOC faculty into our professoriate. That work has continued specifically through what is known as the Annual Institute on Teaching and Mentoring. It's run by our SREB Southern peer. It continues to be very successful. New England institutions and students do participate, but not at the level that we would like them to. Give you a quick snapshot of what this looks like in terms of the engagement of sort of promising rising scholars. Our goal for the coming year, the Institute has typically been an in-person event, but they're going to do it virtual again. The benefit for that is it gives us some additional runway and it also lowers the cost for participation. So our goal really is to work with doctoral granting institutions around the region to make sure that any scholars, minority scholars that they have who might be interested in faculty opportunities in the future can participate in this. We're going to engage directly with those institutions, chief academic and chief diversity officers, chancellors, and presidents. We'd like to work through your systems, through your associations, whether it be independent college and university associations or other consortia, to get this word out. There's also an opportunity for participating institutions to participate there in the recruitment. So in addition to the benefits provided to the aspiring scholars, there's opportunities also for the institutions to actually recruit. This is a quick snapshot that I think I've shared with you in the past of recent attendance. There was not a 2020 event, unfortunately, but this is a quick snapshot of sort of New England participation. But it goes without saying that we can do well beyond 43 attendees and 20 participating and recruiting institutions. Obviously, if you don't need to be a doctoral granting institution to recruit, but attendees are obviously going to come primarily from doctoral granting institutions. So with that, I think I will just say that I'll be back in touch, particularly with members of our board who are at doctoral granting institutions or have them in your systems, and we'll keep you informed of all of sort of our outreach on this in terms of making this late February opportunity available on an expanded basis to people in the region. The cost is pretty moderate, and we'll work with institutions to do what we can to support that.
Thank you, Michael. That sounds like another great opportunity for institutions. Are there any questions or comments from folks here? If not, the last presenter in this part of the section is Stephanie Murphy from our Associate Director of Public Policy.
All right, thank you, Greg. I will just share my screen. Let's see. Okay. So I will be brief in my remarks as well, really just to round out the discussion today on faculty diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'll turn quickly to a very brief snapshot of doctoral degree program enrollment and production in New England. Doctoral degree programs most often represent the earliest stage in the post-secondary faculty development pipeline. And, kind of like what Michael touched on earlier, educational requirements for post-secondary faculty vary by subject and the type of institution, but typically post-secondary instructors must have a doctorate. So the greatest supply source for recruiting new faculty come from our nation's doctoral programs. As we dive deeper into the composition of the academic workforce, a pretty large body of research shows that lack of diversity in the post-secondary faculty workforce largely stems from early stages of the faculty development pipeline. So back at the spring board meeting, I presented a lot of data highlighting that doctoral degree program participants and completers in New England tend to be substantially less diverse than the undergraduate college enrolled population. And efforts to improve post-secondary faculty workforce diversity and equity really should begin by focusing on diversifying the initial pool of doctoral degree program participants and helping to improve their completion rates. Across the country, we see quite a few notable differences in the average statistical profile of doctoral degree recipients. So white doctoral degree recipients do tend to be younger and take less time to earn their degree than their Black and Hispanic peers. So the average white doctoral degree recipient in the US is almost 1 year younger than the average Hispanic doctoral graduate and nearly 5 years younger than the average Black doctoral graduate. And while white and Hispanic doctoral graduates take on average about 9 years to complete their doctorate after they've completed their bachelor's degree, Black doctorates take on average 12 years to complete their same degree. In terms of the statistical profile of doctoral degree program applicants and data on program admissions, there's almost no publicly available institution-wide data. Some individual departments release data on their particular doctoral programs, but only 2 universities in New England publish admissions data institution-wide for all of their doctoral programs. And in New England, only MIT provides doctoral program data disaggregated by gender, race and ethnicity, as well as international status, and then further breaks down that data into different categories that include graduate degree types. So they disaggregate master's students from doctoral students. They disaggregate data by school and department. They provide information on applications, admissions, and enrollment rates, doctoral time to completion. They include data on attrition rates, as well as doctoral alumni outcomes. So if you haven't seen it yet, MIT's dashboard is a fantastic tool that's worth looking into, and it should serve as a model to be replicated by other institutions across New England so that we can better understand the statistical profile of individuals who apply to and then are admitted into our region's doctoral programs. Enrollment data that's broken down by race and ethnicity is publicly available only for all graduate programs, so master's and doctoral programs combined. And in that data, in the fall of 2020 in New England, about 45% of all graduate students were white, 4.6% were Black, 6.6% were Hispanic, and 8.9% were Asian. Relative to the US, New England's doctoral student population has a smaller percentage of Black and Hispanic students. So for the sake of comparison, in the US, in fall 2020, Black students comprise 7.8% of the graduate student population, and Hispanics comprised 9.5% of that population. In terms of doctoral degree production, we can see that there has been a pretty dramatic increase in the number of doctorate degrees conferred over the past 60 years. Since 1958, between 1958 and 2018, there was a dramatic increase of 528% in the number of doctorate recipients in the US. More recently, between 2008 and 2018, the number of doctorate recipients grew by 13%. And then if we drill down further and take a look at doctoral degrees conferred by field of study, across the US, we see that while nearly half of all doctoral degrees in the US are conferred in the STEM fields, underrepresented minorities are more likely to pursue a doctoral degree in the liberal arts and humanities, liberal arts and sciences and humanities. So whereas 21% of doctoral degrees in the liberal arts are awarded to Black scholars, only 3.9% of doctoral degrees in the STEM fields go to Black scholars. If we look specifically to New England, data on the liberal arts and sciences and humanities is too limited, but we can still see that for the other degrees, national patterns hold steady at the regional level. So in 2019-2020 in New England, just under half of all doctorate degrees conferred were in the STEM fields. And of those, nearly 3/4 were awarded to white scholars, but only 7.8% were awarded to Hispanic scholars, and a mere 2.4% were awarded to Black scholars. So here's just a recap of what I just covered, and that's a very brief snapshot. Happy to answer any questions, but with that, I will pass it back to you, Greg.
Great, terrific presentation. Are there questions for Stephanie? I had one, and I'll just ask it, I guess. The dashboard from MIT is terrific, right? It gives us a real insight into what's happening there. I'm curious to know if you know why other institutions don't similarly reveal that kind of information. Is it because institutions really have never been asked? Or are there other barriers or anxieties that institutions might have if they were to share that level of information?
That's a really great question. I don't really have an answer to it. Part of it might just be that students don't look for that data when they apply to these programs. By the time they apply to doctoral degree programs, they know who they want to work with, what they want to work on, and so they target specific institutions. That's how I searched for my doctorate program, and so I didn't think to look for that kind of data. Whereas you do see institutions release far more data at the undergraduate level, and so it's possible that there's simply more interest among those who are seeking to pursue a bachelor's degree than there is at the graduate level. But that's a great question. And I think it's one that merits a deeper dive into so that we can understand what is the reasoning behind this. But regardless of the reasoning, I do think that it would be incredibly helpful to students and to researchers if we could better understand the types of students who are applying to these programs and who are being admitted, and then who go on to enroll, so that we can really start to understand who these programs really cater to.
Thank you. I know it's always risky to ask a question about what motivates an institution. I don't expect you to have all those answers right at your fingertips, but I just didn't know if you had any insights. Senator Waters.
I think maybe Duncan had his hand up first, so I'll go after Duncan.
Okay. Duncan.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Great research, Stephanie. One of the things I wanted to know is nationwide in your travels or your research, what states are held up as the exemplars for the production of BIPOC doctoral completers, not necessarily individuals entering the programs. We're aware of impact of the production of the HBCUs and Freeman Hrabowski's school at University of Maryland and his work in this space. But what schools or states have you found to produce the most? And then also in your travels or your research, what was articulated as the ROI or perhaps why those states invested in production of BIPOC doctoral completers?
Great question. So I don't remember the state level data off the top of my head. I can gather that and send that around, because I do have it sort of summarized, the institutions that produce the highest level of minority student graduates and the fewest. So I can send that breakdown to you afterward. In terms of your second question, I don't have a great answer to that either. I don't know what led to the differences in the outcomes, whether students were motivated to enter the program and they had a more diverse student body from the get-go, and then by virtue of having a more diverse graduate student body simply produced a more diverse graduate population, or if there was a high rate of attrition along the way or a low rate of attrition along the way. I don't really know. I would need to see data along the full life cycle of a graduate student's studies to understand what happens at the beginning, what happens in the middle, to then figure out why we see the end result that we do. And that data is simply not publicly available. So I don't know about applications, admissions, attrition rates, other than what I can see at MIT. So I would be cautious to take a stab at answering your question without knowing what goes on in the middle, because I simply don't know kind of the narrative of the student's life cycle along the way.
Sounds like a great next project. Great next project.
Exactly.
Senator Waters, your turn.
Thanks. I wondered whether you could compare the data for undergraduate enrollment for BIPOC with graduate enrollment. And I think that why I'm interested in that is if the numbers are substantially different, which I suspect they are, it would demonstrate that universities and colleges are able to recruit a diverse student body at the undergraduate level. And that would suggest that there is potential for recruiting one at the graduate level too. So I just wonder how those figures would line up.
Yeah, so there is a substantial difference. I'd have to go back to the data that I presented back in the spring, but there is a difference. The undergraduate population is far more diverse on average than the graduate student population. And so I agree. I think, there's no reason why the graduate student population, there needs to be that sort of drop off, and that white students need to be overrepresented among graduate students. And that's why I'm so curious to get at the application and admissions data, because I think there's a critical piece missing that can help put together the picture of what's going on in the time between the undergraduate program and in the graduate program. So this is work that I will continue diving into and trying to find this information and trying to put together all the pieces of this. But yeah, there does seem to be a drop off. And the big question is, what is causing this drop off, and how can we mitigate this?
Thank you, Stephanie. I'm going to move us along. We have 4 people who are here to offer some state perspectives and updates on New England equity initiatives. I'm going to introduce them all and let them fight for time. Joyce Judy, president of the Community Colleges of Vermont. Pat Marshall, the Deputy Commissioner for Academic Affairs and Student Success from the Massachusetts Department of Higher Education. Dan Malloy, Chancellor of the University of Maine system, or as I call him, Governor. Michael Alexander, the President of LaSalle College. I know that you've sort of been prompted to sort of offer some quick observations. I'd note that we're at about, it's 10:53. I think that we can get through these relatively quickly, and then maybe have a couple of minutes left over for board comment as well. But I guess I'll take them in order. Maybe Joyce Judy would like to begin.
Thank you, Greg. And yes, mine will be pretty quick. I think what I would say is, in Vermont, I think we've been working at this, and I will speak particularly for the Community College of Vermont, but I think we've amplified this work a lot in the last couple of years. And so from our board, the Vermont State College's Board of Trustees, so we are part of the Vermont State colleges. So the Community College of Vermont, Vermont Technical College, Northern Vermont University, and Castleton. Our board has taken on a lot of this work and really has spent time really trying to inform themselves. They've done a lot around some professional development, which has been really gratifying for the board to take that on. A couple of things just from a CCV perspective is just a reminder to people. We have only one community college in Vermont. We have 12 different locations, but we're just one college. And we've, in the last couple of years, have really tried to step up our work around this. And it's really less about doing one-offs, but really trying to change the culture. And so we have a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee that's made up of faculty, staff, and students. And they have actually split up the work and are working with individual councils and teams in terms of identifying an initiative that they are willing to work on to really change the way they do their work. So that's been a really significant, because I think it's across the entire institution. And the last thing I'll just mention that we're pretty excited is that the Community College of Vermont has just hired an executive director of human resources and DEI. And that person is starting in a couple weeks. And if Suresh, president of VPM, was on, he wouldn't be that happy with me, because the person is coming from the University of Vermont to CCV, but we're quite excited about that and look forward to her helping us really move forward with this. So I'll stop there and turn it over to
Thank you.
another state.
Pat?
Hi, this is Pat Marshall from Massachusetts. Usually takes me about 45 minutes to present this information, so I'm going to try to condense it into a few minutes. All of our work is based in a foundational vote by the Board of Higher Education in 2018 to make racial equity a priority. We've been really focused on operationalizing, and I think that that might be the most interesting part of our work for the group. So the first thing we started with was some professional development for all of the staff at the Department of Higher Ed. It was led by Sean Harper, the founder of the University of Southern California Race and Equity Center. And from that intensive multi-day professional development, we were able to establish a series of racial equity and justice principles. And we were also able to establish some statewide goals, which are mostly rooted in attainment. I won't go through those, but we have 3 very high level goals that we're looking to achieve as far as attainment and closing the equity gaps that we have in our state. As part of taking this close look at ourselves, we've also created a policy and program audit, which includes questions that we're using to audit all of our program and policies at the department, hoping that our campuses will follow suit. So just some quick examples. Does the policy or program reflect that racial equity is the top policy and performance priority of the department? What is the origin and history of this policy or program? And what clear measures or goals associated with the policy might present barriers to equitable outcomes? Just to give you a quick flavor for what our policy audit looks like. So we've also undertaken a statewide project to rewrite a foundational document called the Undergraduate Experience. And this project is called the New Undergraduate Experience. It has recommendations in several different areas, including transfer, co-curricular components. It's an 80-page document, but one of the most innovative elements of that document is our Student Bill of Rights. So again, I could provide some links to some presentations that have been done on this new undergraduate experience work, but it has been a really important part of our work to advance racial equity, and it will form the foundation of our strategic planning exercise, which will hopefully result in a 10-year strategic plan for the higher ed system in Massachusetts to advance racial equity. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I'm going to move next to Dan Malloy, but also just make mention that Michael Alexander is here. He's ready to present, but running out of time, and so we will probably just wave goodbye to him at some point as he goes to another meeting. I regret that our presentations went so long that we will miss hearing comments from him, but thank you for your willingness to share in any event. And I know that your comments would have been appreciated. Dan.
My device has been cutting out, so I've been trying to figure out how to make it work better. So if I get cut out, I apologize. First and foremost, and I'll do this very quickly, I went to become the chancellor of the University of Maine system from my prior employment in Connecticut, and certainly came very quickly and swiftly to understand the differences between Connecticut and Maine. Maine is a very rural state, very low population per square mile or acre, and quite frankly, not a lot of diversity. So where Connecticut could attack these issues more quickly, I think Maine has been slow to do that. And in January of this year, I issued a challenge to take on diversity issues.
Okay. I think we've lost.
Might have lost him.
Yeah, we may have lost him. Well, let's just move on. Let's see if he's.
No, I'll do it very quickly. Yeah,
Okay.
sorry for, you've been cutting out all day. So at any rate, so we are taking this on wholeheartedly, from admissions practices to hiring practices to training and onboarding practices. I have to say that following graduation, we did have a system-wide discussion where over 419 people participated in that discussion, really overwhelming our expectation with respect to the number of people who are taking this on squarely. We brought it to our trustees who have issued a new call with respect to diversity.
A valiant effort to get through a short presentation. We appreciate it. It is just past 11 o'clock. Let me pause for a second and just ask if members of the board want to share additional perspectives or additional updates from your states about this work. If you have any comment on the presentations, I'm willing to stay here for as long as others are willing. I know that we're losing people to the 11 o'clock hour, but if you have something to add, we welcome that. Maybe not.
Well, Greg, I would just say we'll obviously continue the conversation as well, and we appreciate people's engagement.
Sure. So I think, you know, for the last hour, we've really been listening to, you know, a lot of work. I have to say, just in conclusion, that I am sometimes feel overwhelmed by the task ahead, but find hope in the work that's being done to attack this problem at different institutions in different parts of New England in small ways. It's the cumulative effort of all of these initiatives that I think will ultimately bring real results. And so I appreciate all of the work from folks that are invested in addressing this issue across New England. Michael, is there anything else for us before we adjourn?
Well, I'll certainly defer to Madam Chair as well. Nothing on my list other than just thanks, Greg, for your help supporting that. Thanks to the NEBI team, Camille, Tatiana, and Stephanie for their contributions. Thanks to, sorry that we didn't connect as much here with you in your comments here at the end due to short time, but thanks to the board members who shared their perspectives as well.
Yeah, I'll just add my thanks. And Greg, I appreciate your remarks, because whenever I've seen this presentation now a couple of times, and it really gets me fired up to be very intentional about making changes and making good things happen. So thank you all.
So with that, I think
motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn would be in order. Yes.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
It looks like we'll be adjourned without objection.
Thank you, everyone. See you soon. Don't forget to volunteer about our discussion on our rates. So thanks again, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of your day.
Everyone. Have a great weekend.